Hello, and welcome to my submission for Cursed Conlang Circus 3. Shit, you. Shit, is a language that is designed so that you have to do complex maths in your head to be able to speak it. It also has some other cursed features. Just some notes about the math. Radians will always be used unless degrees are specified, and all surds will be rounded to decimal places. So the phonology. So, yeah, this is the chart of the phonology here. I'm just gonna read out all of the sounds. So you have uh, 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 s, sh, ch, h, s, sh, ng, l, w, sh, r, y, w, r. Those are all of the consonants, and the vowels go e, u, u, e, e, o, e, o, a, o. Um, and the Han Chinese characters on the right of every single sound are the letters that are going to be used in the orthography. As you could already notice, like from here, this is the name of the language written in the Han Chinese orthography. And for all vowels, the right one represents rounded, the left represents unrounded, just like in the IPA chart. Also, just note the gall stop isn't an adjective. I just put it there for the simplification of the chart. There's been a lot of simplifications solely for the chart, so that I didn't have to make it a billion rows long. But anyways, now then, let's talk about numbers. So numbers in are represented by vowels. All numbers are written in base 17, everybody's favorite base. The letters that represent each number can be found in the table below. So you have representing 0, representing 1, representing 2, representing 3, representing 4, representing 5, representing 6, representing 7, representing 8, representing 9, representing 10, A representing 11, A representing 12, I representing 13, I representing 14, E representing 15, I representing 16, and then you have the decimal point is represented by the glossal stop. So, like, for example, if you wanted to say, like, um, like if you wanted to just say 5 in this language, it would just be a single vowel, or. So yeah, that's numbers. Now then, each consonant will represent a specific function. So this is the table of all of the functions here. I'm not gonna really go through them. uh, just know that represents x instead of 0 because 0 is useless when talking about functions most of the time. Um, yeah. So then, the accusative case, the grammar. The grammar in this language is quite cursed. So basically, first of all, you need to convert a noun into a complex number of the form a plus bi, where a is the number of times e appears and b is the number of consonants. Then change it into the polar form, and over a time, this has been used so much that e has simply been rounded to 3 to speed things up. And to represent I, you use a diphthong formed by combining the vowel representing the number of consonants with the vowel representing the number of vowels. So, like if there were 3 vowels and no, 3 consonants and 1 vowel, it would be that would be the diphthong representing I. And then yeah, if the arctangent if it gives you in terms of pi, then you write it in pi. Otherwise, you round it to 2 decimal places. And pi is given by the arc cosine of -1. So then, the genitive case, part 1. So nouns can also be represented by a 2 by 2 matrix, where A is the number of consonants, B is the number of times appears -3, C is the number of vowels, and D is the determinant, so divided by the number of consonants multiplied by the number of times E appears +2. And this will give you an equation for the determinant that you need to solve, and then that will give you the bottom right term. Okay, also A is the top left term, B is the top right term, C is the bottom left, and D is the bottom right. And if there's no solutions, square the right side and only consider the larger solution. If there's no real solutions, only consider the real part of solution with the largest absolute value written in the Cartesian form. And then part 2. So first, then you need to get the inverse matrix. And then you need to multiply it by the determinant minus 3, and then you divide that by theta. Once again, theta here is just the coefficient to I in e to the I theta when written in the polar form, so you have to also get the accusative case, kind of. And also, by the way, I forgot to mention, yeah, you need to actually, like, write it down. Once you have it in the polar form, you'd have to, like, write the radius as a number, then e as, then you'd have to get right times, which is t, and then e, 3 raised to the power of whatever. You'd have to actually, like, write it down in the polar form. And then you divide it by theta, then you multiply all of the entries by 100, then you round all of the entries to the nearest whole number. So this will give you, like, whole number matrix with nothing at the front. So if a is even, the word will start with y. If it's odd, it will start with a. And then the next vowel will be the vowel corresponding to a mod 17. And if b is divisible by 3, the next consonant will be s. If it's divisible by 7, the next consonant will be l. If both are true or neither are true, the next consonant will be h. The next vowel will be the vowel corresponding to b minus 2 mod 17. If c is prime, the next letter will be s. If c is 0, the next letter will be hl. Else, the next letter will be The next vowel will be the vowel corresponding to c times 6 mod 17. So then finally, for the next part, you let y double prime of x equal d, y prime of d equals 0, and y of d minus 3 equals 0. This will then give you a quadratic equation that you need to solve. And if the other solution to the quadratic equation is prime, because we already know d minus 3 is the solution, the next constant will be otherwise it's and then the next vowel will be the next vowel will be the vowel corresponding to the other solution of the quadratic equation found, mod 17. I don't know why, but whenever I do this, it always gives me a whole number. I'm not sure why it does that, but I'm cool with that. So then, instrumental case. Super simple. You prefix the vowel corresponding to the determinant of the inverse matrix mod 17, rounded to 1 decimal place. If the word starts with a vowel, add an epenthetic nga. So then, verbs, past and future. So that's most of the stuff with the nouns. So verbs, verbs can be represented as functions of x, and to conjugate the past and future tense, you differentiate and integrate respectively. For example, the verb for to love, lutza, represents the function the integral of x dx times the sine of 4 radians. When differentiated, the function is x times sine of 4 radians, or when integrated, the function becomes bracket x to the power of 3 times sine of 4 radians, bracket divided by 6. That should be a 6. God. Wait, yeah, it should be. Or, and since multiplication is commutative, it could have also been written like this. Then to mark that it's an integral, you suffix the word h to the end, which means constant, and represents the constant of integration. Or to mark that a word was differentiated, you can add the suffix which roughly corresponds to the English dx. By the way, you can also integrate and differentiate multiple times to indicate far future and far past. So, like, differentiating once could mean, like, near past, and then differentiating, like, 4 times could be, like, far past. And it all really depends on the context. And for that, you would suffix the words multiple times. So, like, if you're integrating twice, you would add hehe to the end. So then, the subjunctive mood. It's formed by taking the derivative of the vector v equals f of t I hat plus g of t j hat, where f of t is the function represented by the verb, and g of t is the derivative of the inverse of f. Then you multiply the two functions to get the new verb that represents the subjunctive form of the verb. If there's no inverse, let g of t be the integral of f. The subjunctive mood is actually used in the exact same way as the indicative mood, but native speakers can sometimes use it to express emphasis, or sometimes they'll just use it because it sounds cool. So then, honorifics. There are several types of honorifics for different levels of respect. The lowest level of respect is awarded the honorific Han. The middle level of respect is awarded Ru, and the highest level of respect is awarded Et Silong. There are several ways of knowing which level of respect should be applied, which can change depending on the dialect. But in the standard dialect, the most common greeting is Luk Yu Su which means the integral from 1 to 2 pi of sine of 8x dx. If they're able to answer this question, the other person will then ask their preferred test, and then they'll just ask, and then the most common test after this to see if they are worthy of being awarded epsilon is to ask them eng it u ur which means show by induction that 3 to the power of 2n minus 1 divided by 8 is a natural number, x is a natural number. First person conjugation. So, to conjugate in the first person, I should mention, by the way, that you should do the past or future first and then this process. So you have to take the verb and change it into an n-dimensional vector where n is the number of vowels in the word. Then each entry of that vector is going to be the vowel. So like if your word is like so like to love, it would be represented by the vector 0, 4. And then you divide all the entries by 17. Then you input the vector into the function 170 cosine of the vector. So to calculate the cosine of the vector, you need to put it in the Taylor series. Remember that a vector squared is the length of the vector squared, and then you round, and then this will just give you a constant, and you round it to 2 decimal places. Then you let the function represented by the first constant be f of x, by the first consonant, not constant. And the function represented by the second consonant be g of x. If it's like brackets, log base n, nth root, etc., you can just skip it. The verb is now going to be a suffix onto the first person pronoun, which is iach, where the suffix is going to be f of the number times g of the number rounded to 5 decimal places. Lastly, you suffix the word for vector to the end of the pronoun to end the process. If there's no valid functions, then you just square the number. Second person conjugation. So for this conjugation, you take the second person pronoun, iene, and suffix a new form of the verb. You write the verb as a function, then you take the Laplace transform of it. If there's no Laplace transform, take the inverse and suffix that. If that doesn't exist, take the Fourier transform. If that doesn't exist, suffix the second derivative. If the resulting function is even, suffix e. If it's odd, suffix o. If neither, suffix hu. Then, if you took the Laplace or inverse Laplace transform, suffix Laplace. If you took the Fourier transform, suffix Fourier. And if you took the second derivative, suffix nothing. Then suffix the honorific that corresponds to the person you're talking to. Then suffix the largest root of the function. If there's no root, then suffix hl. Third person conjugation doesn't exist. The third person is considered the default. You simply suffix the verb and honorific onto the pronoun ichi. Negation. To negate a verb, you make the word an n-dimensional vector with each entry being one of the functions represented by the constants, e.g. the word yulchlo to create would be a 2-dimensional vector with the entries negative t, lnt. The suffix you add to the verb will depend on the following. Does the function have asymptotes? If yes, suffix e. If no, no suffix. Which quadrant is the vector in when t equals 0? If it's in quadrant 1, suffix o. If it's in quadrant 2, suffix if it's in quadrant 3, suffix If it's in quadrant 4, suffix nothing. And if it's like, if t equals 0 is undefined, or the vector is like 3-dimensional, you suffix ili. And then you suffix the vowel corresponding to the y value when t equals 0. If it's undefined, suffix yeah, corrected 2 decimal places. Grammatical number. So to represent grammatical number, you simply suffix the number to the end of the word with an epenthetic inserted if needed. There's no plural number. You have to specify the exact number. Word order. SVO for most sentences, but if the verb is in the subjunctive, the word order changes to SOV. Copula expressions have their own word order. Adjectives and demonstratives go after noun, and adverbs typically go at the beginning of the sentence, but their order is flexible, and the possessed goes before the possessor goes before the possessum. I skipped the copula, whoops. The copula uses the word ya to represent the copula. The word has no future or past form, but the subjunctive form is hle. When saying the copula, the more animacy a noun has, the more it goes to the right. For example, names will have more priority than animals or the word woman or person. If the two nouns are of the same animacy, they will both clump together after the copula. The order of nouns as animacy goes as follows. So you have names slash pronouns, then humans, like woman, artist, elf, animals like bat or sheep, copula, which is either going to be ya or se, mathematical concepts, differentiation, multivectors, etc., natural objects, rock, plant, river, etc., and man-made objects as well as abstract concepts such as computer, dream, or deity. Um, Pronouns. So pronouns don't follow the usual case rules. There's no accusative or instrumental form of the pronouns. The genitive is formed by suffixing r, v, where v is the number of vowels in the pronoun, 2 for iach and ichi, but 3 for shine. Iach is the first person pronoun, shine is the second person pronoun, and ichi is the third person pronoun. Morphology. So these are just some morphological affixes that exist in language. So the adjective to adverb prefix v, where v is the vowel corresponding to the number of consonants in the adjective. To get the antonym of an adjective, you infix the integral of the adjective when analyzed as a function. It's infixed after the second letter. If the function is a constant, then infix v, where v is the constant the function represents. The augmentative is applied to adjectives only and is the prefix u. The diminutive is similar, but only applied to adjectives as the infix alla, which is inserted before the last consonant. Now to adjective, change the last vowel to the vowel one above it. So if the vowel is which represents 0, then you would change it to u, which represents 1. If it's delete it, then suffix and verb to noun, you simply suffix shra. What to do when you encounter weird functions not described. So there are many functions in math that are not described in this language. For example, when I was doing the translation, I encountered the digamma function, which has no representation in EU. However, it does have an integral representation, which can be represented as this. I had to differentiate like x squared over 2 sine of 4x factorial, which was a mess and it was really painful. And I had the digamma function, and now it's time for the translation. And as you can see, I think you can see which one it was. This word. Anyways, translation. This is going to be so bad to pronounce. But here goes. Iach a echle strongwo Edward ja slit I giach nger o hyshu slosle uswo ru ichi ja itu us ure iach et shrot I lie uhilie iach look heshu she her rio it or it ru you I yo heshu she ho sle ichi.